Rape sister-in-law. Execute 7-month-old babies. Forcing his uncle to drink urine. Having sex with his wife in public. These things just sound incredible. But in the Daba mountain area, in the winter of 1980, these things actually happened. It happened to a local emperor. This local emperor's name is Zhu Shiqiang. That year, just 34 years old. Before becoming the so-called emperor, he is just an ordinary farmer. Zhu Shiqiang's hometown. In Damya Commune, Yingshan County, Nancheng, Sichuan. Now this place has become Damya Township. In 1960, 14-year-old Zhu Shiqiang moved to Longtan Commune in De County with his parents. Now Daxian has become Dazhou. Although it is a peasant family. But Zhu Shiqiang's conditions are actually pretty good. Because he went to elementary school and was literate. Knows some knowledge. His level of education. Such conditions were placed in the Daba mountain area at that time. In fact, he is already considered a small intellectual. After all, in that environment at that time, illiterates make up the majority. The residents in mountain villages are basically not civilized yet. Informed, feudal and backward. But what about Zhu Shiqiang? He failed to take advantage of this. Although I went to elementary school. But he is still too lazy to eat. Unwilling to use one's strengths. Even if I farm at home, I spend 3 days fishing and 2 days drying the nets. This will definitely not last long. The Enlightenment person who later changed Zhu Shiqiang's destiny. In fact, it was his grandfather named He Ziming. He Ziming is a charlatan. Telling fortunes all day long. See a doctor. Look at feng shui. I have been doing this for more than half a century. Well known locally. In the previous story, we have mentioned. In that ignorant age. Including in some remote and backward areas in modern times. People have not yet come out of feudal superstition. At this stage, witchcraft and medicine are often inseparable. Someone at home is sick. If you can't afford a doctor, you'll find a wizard. Something strange happened at home. If it's haunted, you'll find a wizard to do it. Therefore, charlatans like He Ziming became popular. He made a lot of money from it. Family conditions are also slightly better. So thanks to good family conditions, Zhu Shiqiang found a beautiful wife. The beauty of the team at that time was named Ma Jingsui. After getting married, the household expenses have increased. And Zhu Shiqiang, he also suffers from the lack of ways to make money. This reminded him of his grandfather He Ziming. So starting from 1971, he began to learn from He Ziming. Some charlatanism. Follow the master every day to do fortune telling. I've lived like this for 3 years. He Ziming died of illness in 1974. Ironic, yes. Even though He Ziming claimed that he knew many kinds of magic and medical skills. But he failed to save his own life. He Ziming passed away. Zhu Shiqiang naturally inherited his mantle. Continue walking through the streets. Make money by cheating. Of course. What are their so-called spells? In fact, it's not all 100% lies. Let's talk about He Ziming. The reason why he has been able to work in this industry for 50 or 60 years. It's because he does have some real abilities. He does know some real medical skills. Able to see some doctors. And what happened later? He also gave all these skills to Zhu Shiqiang. Plus Zhu Shiqiang. He already has a certain culture. The combination of the two also makes those quacks more credible. From 1974 to 1980. Use these skills. Zhu Shiqiang treats people every day and uses talismans to exorcise evil spirits and summon spirits. I made hundreds of dollars in some mountain villages around De County. I also received a lot of gifts. Everyone has a relatively high degree of recognition for him. Whenever something happens at home, I am willing to look for him. Don't underestimate these few $100s. Until now. That's almost equivalent to tens of thousands of dollars. Let's not talk about the money first. How did he earn it? At least we had the money at that time. Such conditions are already good. And Zhu Shiqiang's wife Ma Jingsui. She is a traditional woman. Strictly abide by the rules of husband and wife. To Zhu Shiqiang. That's what you're told. Judging from an isolated environment like a small mountain village. This kind of life is actually pretty good. So why did Zhu Shiqiang later become emperor? This starts with his second sister-in-law. The second sister-in-law is the same as Zhu Shiqiang. I also learned some charlatanism from Ziming before. But the second sister-in-law entered the industry earlier. She is Zhu Shiqiang's senior sister. Later, Zhu Shiqiang became bigger and stronger. Second sister-in-law looks jealous. One day I will find Zhu Shiqiang. Talk about being strong in the world. On knowledge. I'm your first. The first is greater. That's adults. If you make money. According to our business rules, you must respect your adults properly. Me. According to the second sister-in-law's wishes. From now on, every dollar earned will be divided into 30.3 cents and given to the second sister-in-law. This is equivalent to directly asking for 1/3 of the income. Zhu Shiqiang is naturally unwilling. But what about Zhu Shiqiang? He is also relatively feudal and ignorant. After all, she is the second sister-in-law. As his senior sister. Follow the rules of their industry. He does have the right to collect a share. So Zhu Shiqiang had to agree. But what happened later? As time goes by. Because he has to hand over a huge share of the profits. Zhu Shiqiang's income has dropped visibly. This made him very angry. But what? He dares to be angry but dare not speak out. One night. Zhu Shiqiang was talking to himself angrily at home again. Isn't she just a stinky woman? Why can she be an adult? I can't be an adult. I guess he should be the biggest adult in the world. I've tried it with someone before. I am destined to be rich and noble. Someone should kneel down for me. I should eat chicken, duck, and fish every day. I should be rich. I should have more women besides my wife. I should be clothed and reach out my hand. Open your mouth when food comes. After having such an idea, Zhu Shiqiang decided to perform a big drama. On the morning of November 22nd, 1980. It's still dark. Zhu Shiqiang went out to the market to tell fortunes. But the strange thing is, until 3 poles in the sun, he still hasn't come back. Just when his wife Ma Jingsui was confused, Zhu Shiqiang's sister hurried over and said, "My brother Zhu Shiqiang suddenly went crazy. He was singing and dancing and couldn't stop at all." Upon hearing this, Ma Jingsui was very worried and hurriedly found his second sister-in-law. Because Zhu Shiqiang and the second sister-in-law chatted together for a long time last night, maybe the second sister-in-law knows what is going on. When the second sister-in-law heard this, she gave Ma Jingsui an idea and asked her to quickly find Zhu Shiqiang, slap Zhu Shiqiang on the forehead 3 times, and call Sir 3 times, and Zhu Shiqiang would return to normal. At this time, Zhu Shiqiang was at Ma Jingsui's uncle's house. It is said that Zhu Shiqiang was asked to come and take a look because his uncle's house had been a little unclean recently. But he didn't expect that Zhu Shiqiang suddenly started dancing, singing and dancing as he watched. He didn't respond when he was called. He looked like he was crazy, so he sent someone to find Ma Jingsui. When Ma Jingsui arrived, Zhu Shiqiang must have been tired from dancing and fell on the bed with his eyes closed. Ma Jingsui walked over, shouted several times, and patted several times, but Zhu Shiqiang did not respond and seemed to have passed out. At this time, Ma Jingsui thought of the method given to her by her second sister-in-law. She immediately went over and gently patted Zhu Shiqiang's forehead 3 times, and then shouted, "Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty" 3 times. Sure enough, Zhu Shiqiang slowly opened his eyes and asked slowly, "What's going on?" Ma Jingsui didn't know what kind of medicine Zhu Shiqiang was selling. She really thought Zhu Shiqiang was sick, so she asked with great concern, "What's wrong with you? Do you want to call a doctor?" After hearing this, Zhu Shiqiang became angry and replied angrily, "Hey, go see a doctor, go and boil some eggs for me." As for Zhu Shiqiang, the reason why he was able to become the so-called emperor was later jokingly said that he was the emperor in exchange for 20 eggs. Why do you say that? Because Zhu Shiqiang is a smart man and he knows how to grasp the psychology of the villagers. First of all, he knew that what the villagers needed were tangible benefits. Secondly, he also knew that the villagers were almost all illiterate and had no concept of science. They still believed in the ghosts and gods. Once these 2 points were combined, Zhu Shiqiang used these boiled eggs to perform a play in front of everyone. He asked his wife to call all the neighbors, claiming that the Jade Emperor had just given him a dream and asked him to be the emperor. He also distributed the 20 eggs cooked by Ma Jingsui to the crowd, saying that these eggs were for him to ascend the throne. If you eat dragon eggs, you will be blessed for 100 years. In the Daba mountain area at that time, everyone was very poor, and it was difficult to solve the problem of food and clothing. Eggs could be said to be a luxury product. Although every household raises chickens, they are reluctant to eat eggs and sell them to make money. Zhu Shiqiang suddenly became so generous and shared eggs with everyone, so naturally he didn't eat for free. Some villagers with relatively simple ideas really believed it, thinking that since Zhu Shiqiang could treat everyone to eat so many eggs, maybe he really wanted to be the emperor, and he was opening a warehouse to stock up on food. Of course, there are some more rational villagers. Although they don't believe Zhu Shiqiang's words, it is great to eat an egg for free. They are also happy to stay and see what Zhu Shiqiang is selling in this gourd. Medicine. Regardless of the situation, Zhu Shiqiang's goal was actually achieved. 24 people gathered in the room to hear him speak. Zhu Shiqiang sat upright on the bed and claimed that the Jade Emperor had just warned him in his dream that he should become an emperor and benefit the people. Why? The Jade Emperor said that now this regime, all regimes have collapsed, and you, Zhu Shiqiang, are the only one who has the position of emperor. You should go to Beijing to ascend the throne, change the dynasty, and unify the world. All in all, they are all reactionary remarks. While talking, Zhu Shiqiang started dancing again, chanting some mantras and dancing for a while. He then expressed mysteriously that the Jade Emperor had just revealed some secrets to him, saying that there would be a big disaster starting this winter, and the mountains would be destroyed. The collapsed ground must be leveled. I am now the emperor appointed by the Jade Emperor. Those who are loyal to me and kneel to me can avoid disasters and enjoy the emperor's favor. After all, it was in a mountain village area. The feudal ideas of the villagers were deeply rooted. In addition, everyone was farmers, and what they feared most were natural disasters such as floods and droughts. So when they heard this, 7 or 8 villagers were immediately frightened, and they quickly knelt down and asked Zhu Shiqiang to protect them. As for the villagers who didn't believe it, after all, they had eaten other people's eggs and short-talked people, so they were too embarrassed to meddle in other people's business and did not report Zhu Shiqiang. In this way, Zhu Shiqiang won his first batch of believers with 20 eggs in this small room. Those people really regarded him as the emperor and started calling him Long Live, and this absurd story became official. Kicked off. In the next few days, he relied on his knowledge of charlatanism to promote his identity as emperor and said that the Jade Emperor had ordered that he would ascend the throne in 7 days. He specifically targeted some superstitious old people and tricked them into causing various natural disasters caused by the Jade Emperor. These old people were immediately frightened, and they all knelt down conscientiously and shouted Long Live. After all, the people there are relatively feudal, and they all say that the father is the guide for the son. When people see their elders, they kneel down, and everyone else also kneels down. So slowly 10, 20, 30, and eventually more than 80 people came and knelt down for him. Although the Jade Emperor asked Zhu Shiqiang to ascend the throne in 7 days, he actually couldn't wait the next day. He was afraid that some villagers would report him to the commune, so he couldn't wait to ascend the throne the next day, November 23rd. On the day he ascended the throne, he placed a broken chair outside the door with a golden quilt spread on it. He sat on it decently and declared that he had officially ascended the throne and became the emperor. At the same time, he did not forget to continue to promote his fallacies and heresies. The mountains will collapse and the earth will be leveled. I can handle it all as the emperor. After hearing this, the onlookers knelt down and shouted Long Live, hoping to get the emperor's protection. Suffering from natural disasters. However, before the emperor could protect these people, Zhu Shiqiang first asked for benefits from the people. He required his subjects to kill a chicken for themselves every day, no matter how they cooked it, but there must be attendants and maids nearby to feed him. After eating and drinking, you have to poop and pee. You must be supported by people to go to the toilet. Some ignorant villagers really obeyed his instructions and did whatever he asked. With everyone taking care of him, Zhu Shiqiang began to think about sleeping. He said that he was guided by the Jade Emperor to marry 48 wives and make them his wives, so that he could enjoy the emperor's favor and enjoy happiness for a lifetime. After saying this, he looked around and selected 4 young girls among his subjects. Regardless of whether they were willing or not, he canonized them as first dash, second dash, third and fourth grade ladies. That night, Zhu Shiqiang couldn't wait to rape the newly consecrated first-class lady Ma Lanhua in front of his wife Ma Jingsui. But this was not enough. The next night, he wanted to do something more fancy, and let 4 ladies of the first, second, third and fourth grades, as well as 5 women including his wife Ma Jingsui, serve him. So all 5 people were ruined by him. What's even more hateful is that his first-class wife, Ma Lanhua, was only 16 years old at the time, and this Ma Lanhua was actually the daughter of Zhu Shiqiang's wife, Ma Jingsui's uncle. In this sense, she was considered his sister-in-law, and even her own relatives were not spared. It's really hateful. Then on the 3rd day, Seeing his daughter being raped by Zhu Shiqiang for 2 consecutive nights, Ma Jingsui's uncle was very angry and ran to the commune early in the morning to report the crime. Zhu Shiqiang was so frightened that he no longer dared to stay in the village. He immediately camped personally and fled to his father-in-law's house in the next village. In order to vent his anger at being reported to his father-in-law's house, he started rolling around, throwing everything he saw, and beating anyone he saw. He also made an excuse, saying that he was exorcising evil spirits from his father-in-law's house. In this way, he made trouble all morning. By the afternoon of that day, he felt that his father-in-law's house was not safe, so he went to his uncle He Guangfa's house again. At He Guangfa's house, this farce has officially reached its climax. On November 27th, the 6th day after Zhu Shiqiang became emperor, he suddenly began to twitch and dance, claiming that he was possessed by his dead grandfather He Ziming, so now he was possessed by ghosts and gods, and he was the emperor of the Jade Emperor. The emperor must have more people coming to worship him. When Uncle He Guangfa heard this, he, who was already very ignorant and superstitious, became even more convinced. Because He Ziming was very strict with He Guangfa during his lifetime, He Guangfa was also scared at this time and did not dare to breathe. He would do whatever Zhu Shiqiang said. Zhu Shiqiang drank too much water and wanted to go to the toilet, so he asked 3 men, including his uncle, to help him go to the toilet. After peeing, they were also asked to drink their own urine, euphemistically saying that dragon urine can prolong life. If it were a normal person, if I was asked to drink urine for no reason, I would definitely be anxious. But these people are so stupid that they actually drank it under Zhu Shiqiang's coercion. Making people drink urine wasn't enough. Zhu Shiqiang had an idea and said he wanted to be a yellow species. What does it mean? In fact, he just wants to do things between men and women, but he is the emperor, and he must do it differently. In order to show his status as emperor, Zhu Shiqiang and his wife Ma Jingsui began to have sex in the house in front of more than a dozen people, and threatened that being an emperor must be so upright. Listen, is this human language? Is this a personnel matter? I personally think that Zhu Shiqiang might have been a little crazy at that time and had some mental problems. In the evening, he asked his men to buy firecrackers for him. After buying them, they all started crackling. The firecrackers set off at night immediately attracted the surrounding neighbors. This Zhu Shiqiang also went crazy alone. When he saw that there were many people, he asked his men to build a small earthen platform for him. He stood on it and shouted loudly, "I am the emperor here to benefit the people. You all have to kneel down for me. Whoever doesn't kneel down, kill without mercy." When his subjects heard this, they all knelt down. Some of the onlookers didn't understand what was going on, but under the intimidation and instigation of other subjects, they also knelt down in confusion. This includes his uncle He Guangfa's daughter named He Bifang. He Bifang originally did not want to kneel, but under the pressure of his father He Guangfa and Zhu Shiqiang, he finally knelt down. At this time, He Bifang was holding her 2-year-old daughter Deng Haining in her arms and carrying her 7-month-old daughter Deng Qiang on her back. These 2 children are still young, and when he kneels there, both adults and children feel uncomfortable. The key moment was when Zhu Shiqiang screamed on the stage, frightening the 2 children and making them cry. It was precisely because the 2 children kept crying that a murder occurred and Zhu Shiqiang himself was completely pushed to the end. The 2 children cried so much that Zhu Shiqiang became angry. He said angrily, "Why bother to get these 2 rebel kings out? Why are you crying here?" But after all, these are his own children. He Bifang he must have knelt there because he didn't want to, which made Zhu Shiqiang even more angry. He rushed up and slapped He Bifang twice on the face. He Bifang had no choice but to stand up and carry the child into the house aggrievedly. But the child was indeed frightened. Even though he was in the house, he kept crying. Later, he carried him outside the yard to no avail and kept crying. As for Zhu Shiqiang, he is indeed a weirdo, insisting on competing with 2 children. When he saw that the child was still crying, he became even more angry and ordered He Guangfa, "Now I order you to throw these 2 rebel kings into the East Water Field and execute them immediately." You may ask, why is this happening? He is also a person who cannot understand clearly. Indeed, because of superstition, he believed that Zhu Shiqiang in front of him was really possessed by his father He Ziming. But even if it was his father who ordered it, he should not kill these 2 children. After all, these 2 children are his biological grandchildren. How could he possibly do it? But he just did it. He snatched the child from He Bifang's hands and immediately threw it into the paddy field outside. You must know that it was late autumn and the weather was already very cold. 2 children were thrown into the water. It was so cold. How could they not cry? He Bifeng was so distressed that she immediately rushed over to fish the child out of the water and put it in her arms. But as for Zhu Shiqiang, he still refused to let the child go. When he saw the child being fished out, he asked He Guangfa to snatch the child away and to execute him in public. And this He Guangfa was so stupid that he actually killed the family out of justice, snatched the child away and put it on the ground in the yard. Zhu Shiqiang immediately picked up a hoe and banged the two children to death, leaving them bloody. He Bifeng cried heartbreakingly, but no one paid attention to her. Even her father He Guangfa showed no sympathy. Instead, he followed Zhu Shiqiang's order and threw the two children's bodies into the manure pit again. Later, Zhu Shiqiang felt uneasy and resentful, so he fished out two small corpses and let He Guang burn them out, destroying the corpses and removing traces of them. After a while, the two children were burned into black balls of flesh, and He Bifeng had already fainted from crying. The whole process was extremely bloody and tragic, but what was puzzling was that during the hour-long violence, no one from the many onlookers stood up to stop what happened. Finally, a passing primary school student discovered the incident and quickly went to the commune to report the incident. After receiving the report from the primary school students, the village secretary brought several security team members to He Guangfa's home the next day. With little effort, they subdued the so-called emperor and his men and handed He Guangfa to the police. At this point, Zhu Shiqiang, who had only been emperor for 7 days, was quickly arrested. It is said that when Zhu Shiqiang was arrested, some ignorant villagers felt incredible. They could not figure out that Zhu Shiqiang was not the emperor. How could he arrest the emperor? It was not until a few months later that Zhu Shiqiang was sentenced to death that this group of ignorant people suddenly realized. In the end, Zhu Shiqiang was sentenced to death and deprived of political rights for life because he used feudal superstitious means to rape women, beat people severely, carry out counter-revolutionary propaganda, and claimed to be the emperor to kill 2 people in public. Zhu Shiqiang's uncle He Guangfa was eventually imprisoned for assisting him in committing crimes and helping to kill 2 innocent children. It is said that in the court, the previously arrogant Zhu Shiqiang was so frightened that he cried on the spot and shouted, "I am guilty, please be lenient to the government, please be lenient to me." He couldn't pull himself up no matter what, which made people laugh and cry. This is the ending of Zhu Shiqiang. Similar to Zhu Shiqiang's incident, we have talked about 2 or 3 such incidents before. In fact, there is much more than what we hear and see. According to relevant records, in the short 17 years from 1976 to 1993, there were hundreds of such incidents of proclaiming emperor in rural areas of our country. These so-called emperors were bold and reckless. They not only held ceremonies and ascended the throne, but also granted official titles and titles, selected concubines, and some even formed armed forces in an attempt to change the dynasty. Of course, no matter how they make trouble, most of these farces are subdued at the grassroots level in rural areas, and the public security agencies that have a little more fun quickly fall apart. In 1998, the book The Essence of Emperor's Dream, compiled by Moxan, detailed 10 incidents of proclaiming emperor. The author summarizes this in the book. Emperors can be roughly classified into 3 categories: illiterate, charlatan, and power-mad. Ignorance produces despotism, and despotism and tyrants are the same through the ages. As long as someone claims to be the true dragon emperor, there will be people who will surrender and be loyal, someone paid homage. About 90% of contemporary China's proclaimed emperor events occur in poor and backward areas. This is a fact that cannot be ignored. It can be said that this description is extremely appropriate and accurate. In fact, there are many similarities between emperor proclaiming events and cult events, and the methods to cure them are generally the same. Only by popularizing scientific knowledge, establishing scientific ideas, mastering scientific methods, and promoting scientific spirit are the fundamental ways to defeat feudal superstition, ignorance, and backwardness, and various pseudosciences and cults.